sneaking through the system and getting a third dose.
It doesn't surprise me that 6,000 Coloradans have done that.
More Coloradans are getting an extra COVID-19 shot. Is it necessary just yet?
I think there's a lot of still question marks.
And advocating for Suzanne.
Justice for Suzanne. I also just want her, her to be found.
Friends of Suzanne Morphew stand outside the courtroom as her husband faces day 2 of a court hearing for her murder.
That evidence doesn't lie.
Plus, some clearer, less smoky skies may be on the horizon.
The Delta variant's prominence is increasing exponentially in Colorado. Look at this. According to the most recent data, this is the week ending July 18th, Delta accounts for 100% of new COVID-19 cases. Just 3 months ago, Delta accounted for about 10% of all new cases. And here's a closer look at where the numbers stand in Colorado tonight. We added another 890 cases. Another 189 people have been hospitalized. There are also 5 new outbreaks.
And as cases tick up, more people in Colorado are rushing to get a third COVID-19 dose. Latest data shows 6,800 people in our state are on record for getting a third dose, despite Governor Polis wanting people to hold off. Now, also new tonight, the CDC shows at least 1 million people in the U.S. have received a third shot of either the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. So is it necessary, and is that safe?
Denver7's Ivan Rodriguez begins our 360 coverage tonight, adding some context to these new numbers from the state on that third dose.
And Ivan, you actually spoke with someone who got a third dose.
Yeah, one woman tells me she didn't want to wait any longer for health officials to make a decision on when she could go and get the booster shot. So she took matters into her own hands and got a third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
I felt I had to go take this extra step to protect myself.
Gina Welch lives in the state of Maine. She says she has asthma as well as a liver condition and didn't want to risk getting COVID.
I don't want to be one of the, 15% of symptomatic cases and get, a severe bout of long COVID and then have them say in 6 months, okay, we're now going to do booster shots.
So she decided to go and get a third dose from a clinic different from the place she got her first 2.
I was fully prepared for them to have a system with the CDC and then look me up when they entered my information and say, you've already had your doses, but there was nothing, and they gave me my first dose.
Welch's decision is becoming a popular one here in Colorado as well. Sneaking in that third dose is even something on the governor's radar.
I want everybody to know that we have enough doses if people want to do that. It's certainly a personal decision. I'm not going to be your medical advisor one way or the other.
Dr. Michelle Barron with UC Health says if you don't have a compromised immune system, getting a booster might not be necessary. But for other groups, it's important to speak with your doctor before making this decision.
If you do end up doing this, that you're doing it under the right circumstances so you get the full benefit of the protection.
Barron says studies have shown people with compromised immune systems could benefit from a booster. But until recommendations come out, the advice from doctors is to wait.
There will always be those who say, I'm willing to take a risk, or I really want to do this anyway, and know that that's not what we would recommend.
But for Welch, who received her third dose in June, it's a decision she stands by.
I feel much safer now in the situation that I'm in, knowing that I'm as protected as I can be.
She tells me experts are trying to learn more about both natural immunity and vaccine-induced immunity of COVID-19 to determine if and when third doses are needed. Now, as of today, boosters aren't officially recommended by the Advisory Committee of Immunization Practices. And Shannon?
All right, Ivan, thank you for that. And taking a closer look tonight, Israel is just one country that has approved booster shots for their most vulnerable populations. Out of the first 600,000 Israelis who received a third dose, fewer than 50 people said they had mild symptoms like fever or nausea. No one has reported any major symptoms. Of course, that doesn't seem to be helping much. Israel was just added to the high travel risk category by the CDC. The so-called level 4 countries are the ones you see here in red, where there have been more than 500 COVID cases per 100,000 residents over a month. Today, Israel joined the list along with Iceland, France, Thailand, and Aruba. Last week, other major countries joined the list, like Greece, and Ireland. The CDC is still recommending against all international travel, even for vaccinated people.
CU Boulder will now require everyone on campus to wear masks indoors, regardless of vaccination status. CU says masking is the simplest way to prevent reducing capacity in the classrooms or other buildings. Students, staff, and teachers at Adams 14 schools back in class today wearing masks. The district is using a stoplight system, so that's how they let families know what the protocols they have to follow are. Right now they're in yellow, so that means students, staff, and visitors have to wear a mask indoors. Red means visitors are not allowed. Green will mean masks are recommended but not required.
Still, as cases rise, restaurants, hotels, and other businesses in Denver are getting a big boost this week. The third largest convention since the pandemic hit started today here in Denver. Outdoor Retailer is where both retailers and buyers see what's new in outdoor gear and clothing. It is expecting about 12,000 people from around the world to attend this convention. Of course, those visitors are being greeted by yet another hazy day across the skyline as we take a live look over Denver. Smoke once again coming from California, but 1 year ago today, the smoke was all Colorado caused, building up in Glenwood Canyon when the Grizzly Creek fire began. It eventually burned up more than 32,000 acres, creating a large burn scar, and that burn scar is what helped along mudslides last month, which now has I-70 and Glenwood Canyon still closed for repairs. Now, for now, we are lucky Colorado doesn't have any major wildfires. Of course, our air quality is still terrible.
Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson joins us now on another Weather Action Day, Mike.
I tell you what, these particles of wildfire smoke are really something. This is the view, if you want to call it that, from the Continental Divide looking east, top of Loveland ski area. This is looking west from City Park in Denver. Very hazy conditions out there. And this is the wildfire smoke map. You can see that smoke coming from California across Nevada, Utah, right into Colorado. Maybe slightly better tomorrow, but not by a whole lot, and a little bit better by the time we get to Thursday, but it's going to be a slow process. So the headlines are very poor air quality. Even if you're healthy, avoid outdoor exercise. It's going to stay hot and dry through Thursday. We hit 95 today. Tomorrow, the predicted high 98 degrees, which would set a new record. However, looking a little bit farther ahead, there is a chance of some thunderstorms, which might clear the air a little bit as we get to the weekend. Your full 7-day forecast coming up in about 15 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mike. CDPHE has a team of meteorologists whose job is to closely monitor our air quality.
The small particles, again, PM 2.5, being particulates in the atmosphere that are small enough to not only get into your respiratory tract, your airways, and your lungs, but may also be small enough to work their way into the bloodstream and really cause some significant health problems.
Those meteorologists also work with the EPA to make sure air quality levels stay low for certain areas. Now, Colorado has 12 of these designated areas where the air quality has to remain low. 4 areas are in national parks, 8 in wilderness areas.
Who is telling the truth? Today, an FBI agent testified that he believes Barry Morphew chased his wife Suzanne around the house before allegedly killing her the day before Mother's Day last year.
But the defense says neighbors never heard anything and that the FBI agent's theory is just impossible. Denver7's Russell Haythorne again in court today for day 2 of this preliminary hearing and joins us live in Salida.
And Russell, lots of new details emerging again today in the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew.
Yeah, Ann, and keep in mind, Suzanne Morphew's body has never been found. That's partially why we're here today, why we're in this preliminary hearing down in Salida, because the evidence is so circumstantial. There is no smoking gun, so to speak, and there is so much in question. What we did here today was 2 FBI officers who took the stand and testified about what evidence they do have that led to the arrest of Barry Morphew. Barry Morphew's mom and other relatives enter the courtroom in support of Barry for day 2 of his preliminary hearing. Friends and supporters of Suzanne were here as well.
She was always sweet and nice.
Justice for Suzanne and her daughters, I feel for them.
In court today, former FBI agent Johnny Grusing testifying that Barry Morphew appeared to go on multiple trash runs the day of Suzanne's disappearance, including throwing things away at an RTD bus stop, a Holiday Inn, a McDonald's, and a Men's Warehouse in the Broomfield area. The agent says Morphew spent about 40 minutes in the Men's Warehouse parking lot alone.
Couldn't explain what he was throwing away. way.
Telematics data from Barry's Ford truck also shows him opening and closing doors at odd hours the day before Suzanne disappeared and moving around his mountain property in the truck. Grusing also says they found a tranquilizer dart cap in the dryer of the Morphew's home. The agent wrote in the arrest affidavit that Barry was most likely chasing Suzanne around while she was conscious, and that's why Barry's phone pinged in different areas around the house.
That evidence doesn't lie.
But the defense poking holes in that theory today in court, showing evidence that his movement would have been impossible because the phone would have had to move through walls and at speeds up to 42 miles per hour to get from one place to the next if the cell records are correct. Also today, the defense introduced evidence suggesting $70,000 was missing from a garage safe at the Morphew home, perhaps suggesting Suzanne took the money and ran away.
My heart goes out to all of them. No matter what was going on in her personal life, if she was murdered, she didn't deserve that.
Morphew was in court again today. He was sitting there and his two daughters were sitting directly behind him. They are here in support of him. At one point, he turned around and smiled at them underneath his mask, and one of them said, "You look so good." This preliminary hearing just wrapped up today, and it will continue in 2 weeks with another 2 days of testimony. We'll keep you posted on that schedule. For now, we're live in Salida. Russell Haythorne, Denver7.
America, this is how we truly build back better.
A $1.1 trillion infrastructure package is now heading to the House.
But what's in it for Colorado?
I take full responsibility for my actions.
Andrew Cuomo steps down as governor, and his replacement makes history.
And the Broncos' first preseason game finally has its quarterback.
There is no grading scale, but ultimately we got to go by what we see.